When it comes to choosing your professions, it can be an absolute minefield. Do you focus on maximizing your tanking ability, your healing output, or your DPS? Do you have some gold making potential alongside the PvE or PvP benefits? Do you have another character to play? Something as simple as having an alt can change your decision on professions. Because if you go double crafting like engineering dual crafting at launch, you're going to need a Saudi prince to bankroll it. Or in response to every comment that's about to come, yes, you could do GDKP runs. With all that said, I'm going to tell you the best 2 professions in terms of personal gain, and remember, with dual spec, especially for classes that can either DPS and heal, or heal and tank, or tank and DPS, it's important to most people to have 2 professions that complement each other for both roles. So that will be taken into account for all of my recommendations. All of these professions go through changes between 3.0 and 3.3.5. Now we have confirmation that class balance will be 3.3.5. I'm assuming and hoping that professions will be the same. If not, very little will still change in this. For the warrior, first you need to think about that big stat that you hear thrown around on every video, armor penetration. Due to being able to dual wield 2 big-handed weapons as Fury, you don't have a hard time hitting the armor pen cap in later stages of the expansion. But the option to use the big gems from dual crafting is too convenient to pass up. Before you get stacking armor pen, you still get massive value from dual crafting by stacking strength gems. The other benefit of dual crafting will be if you decide to have a protection off spec, giving you a ton of stamina from gems and a solid trinket to carry you through phase 1 with stamina and 2 gem slots for even more stamina. You of course know what's going to be paired with dual crafting: engineering. It goes without saying it's so useful for both DPS and tanking by giving you the haste on your gloves for DPS, armor on your gloves for protection, with bombs, sapper charges, portable mailboxes, gold saved from enchanting your gloves, boots and capes by adding the nitro boost to your boots with a 24 crit rating, 23 agility and a parachute on your cloak, and just so much more fun stuff. It's hard to deny, it really is just the best profession in the game. All that being said, if you had more focus on tanking than DPS, then you could always just pair mining with engineering for the stamina and make leveling engineering cheaper for you and drop mining later on to pick up something else like level working. Because point for point, as a second profession to go alongside dual crafting, level working will give you the most stamina. The Death Knight follows the exact same path as the warrior. Just go dual crafting and engineering and don't even worry about anything else. If you're wanting to push passes, top damage in your raids, or be the best tank that you can be, JC and engineering is definitely the way to go. Especially when you aren't the most mobile class, so getting those rocket boosts as even a tank is going to be very, very strong. The Paladin is completely different. Oh, no, it's not. It's still dual crafting and engineering. But I feel like this one requires a bit more explanation why. So it doesn't matter what combination of specs you intend on playing in Wrath, you will have the best professions for all 3. The Paladin in general is a really immobile class, no charges, no dash or sprint, so you're actually going engineering as all 3 specs here just to get the rocket boosts. As a Holy Paladin, being able to super quickly get from position A to position B and start casting that Holy Light on your tank is so valuable. Being able to rocket boost over as a Protection Paladin to pick up adds that are running towards your healer, or as a Retribution Paladin getting back into a priority target after a knockback or something similar, is just too good to pass up on. That on top of the Glove Tinker for the haste for Ret and Holy and armor for protection, engineering is just hard to say no to. Dual crafting for all 3 specs again is fairly straightforward. Customization. Big intellect gems for Holy, the Sapphire Owl trinket which is just so good, you'll still be using it multiple phases into Wrath, and the Tankit trinket which will serve you really well early on. As a Druid, I think it's safe to say most people will spec either Feral to both DPS and tank, or Resto Boomy to heal and DPS, or vice versa. I know this isn't going to be true to everyone, and we will see Feral Boomy or even Feral Resto. So I've put together a table with my recommendation depending on what your main spec to off spec is. This will be assuming you use both specs regularly, and let's say you're that flex guy, the one who respecs to either tank or heal or DPS on a boss by boss basis. So looking at the table, we've got our main spec at the top and then we've got our off specs down the side. So if you was Feral Tank and that's all you're worried about, you'll see that you'll be dual crafting level working. This is because the level working fur lining actually gives you more stamina outside of dual crafting than any other profession. If you was just a die-hard feral cat and you don't really care about your off-spec, then dual crafting engineering is absolutely the way to go. Same applies if you was balance, it would be dual crafting engineering, because those big long starfire casts and being able to use your haste on your gloves as engineering and benefit from lots of spell power from your dual crafting gems, it's a no-brainer. If you're a die-hard resto, honestly, the alchemy you could class as flex. Now, dual crafting is just going to give you the most spell power. Alchemy is just a nice one to have because the haste trinket early on is going to be very, very good, and you get extra mana back while you've got it equipped, but you're really going for the haste here because you do want to hit your haste cap as early as possible. You could ditch alchemy on your resto druid and potentially go tailoring or even enchanting. It really doesn't matter, but alchemy would be my priority here. If you as a feral feral tank main spec, feral cat off spec, then dual crafting blacksmithing would be the way to go. You don't really need engineering as a feral tank, you're just wanting as much stamina as possible. So getting the additional stamina from the blacksmithing sockets is going to be beneficial, and when you're ready to start getting armor pen as feral cat, you've got the extra 2 sockets to put more armor pen in. Yes, you're going to lose engineering here, but we're going to assume that you're feral tanking more than you're feral catting. For feral tank and resto off spec, I would go JC Alchemy because you're going to get maximum profession bonuses for your resto druid, and as a tank, you're going to get lots of stamina from your stamina gems, and you're going to get extra stamina from your flasks. If feral cat is your main spec, you just want dual crafting engineering. It doesn't matter about your other spec really, unless you're resto. For feral cat main spec and resto off spec, I'd go JC blacksmithing, so you're going to be able to get decent bonuses for both. Feral cat, again, you're going to be able to get more armor pen by using JC gems and the extra 2 sockets from blacksmithing. And as resto, you're going to get spell power gems and an extra 2 sockets for spell power. If you're balance and feral tank, JC enchanting would be the way to go because you're going to get the big gems for your tanking, and you're going to get stamina on your rings from enchanting. And as balance, you're going to get more or less the maximum amount of spell power that you can get from professions without using tailoring. And the only circumstance I would potentially drop engineering as a balance druid would be if I was healing quite regularly as a resto druid, where I'd go JC tailoring. This is because actually in terms of spell power gain, tailoring is the highest due to that proc. It may not be controllable, but as both specs here, you're going to get really, really good profession bonuses. Resto feral tank is exactly the same as feral tank resto, as is resto and feral cat. JC tailoring for resto balance, the same way as if you was balance resto. The hunter, just go engineering dual crafting. You know why. As you've probably already noticed, engineering dual crafting is just the standard for most non-caster DPS specs. The shaman for all 3 specs will just have engineering and dual crafting as a solid choice. The only place here where you might want a bit of explanation is for resto. Resto shamans will want insane levels of haste throughout Wrath, so the glove haste tinker is amazing for resto and both your DPS specs. Having the rocket boost to quickly be able to get from one position to another and start pumping out heals again is of course very valuable as well. The rogue, you guessed it, just go engineering and dual crafting and you're sorted for the entire expansion. For mages, tailoring over the course of a fight with a proc from your cloak enchant averages out a higher spell power gain than any other profession. On the basis it will proc very soon into the fight due to its high proc chance, it will likely be up with all your trinkets, pots, and whatever else you've got going on at the start for a nice big boost of your spell power. And it will likely be coming off cooldown at similar times as things like your engineering haste glove enchant. And yes, that's right, you're pairing tailoring with engineering. Finally, something with engineering that's not dual crafting. When it comes to the priest, if you plan on playing Shadow and Holy, or Holy and Shadow, then go engineering dual crafting. It's going to be solid again, because if you're trying to pass as a Shadow Priest, you absolutely want engineering. The difficulty comes in if your off-spec's going to be disc, or if your main spec's going to be disc. Because from engineering, you actually get very little benefit. Because the haste cap that you need is so low as a Discipline Priest, that engineering will end up just being for rocket boosts, which, don't get me wrong, will be very nice, but if I was going to be Discipline and Shadow, playing both pretty equally in raids, I'd go tailoring dual crafting. This way, both specs can get really strong bonuses, but you will, of course, miss engineering when you Shadow. Finally, the Warlock. Similar to the Mage, tailoring and engineering is really strong for Affliction or even Destruction if you decided to play Destro. It's strong for Demonology as well, but with Demo, your real goal is to get as much spell power as physically possible to get the big packed buffs out on your raid. So getting the highest amount of spell power gained from your profession should really be your primary goal, which would then be dual crafting and tailoring for the big gems and the tailoring cloak proc. But if you plan on playing Affliction more than Demonology, or you're undecided which one you're going to be playing the most, then engineering and tailoring is a safe bet to at least go into the expansion with. And that's it. If you were struggling for what you should pick for your professions, I hope this helps. Please do make sure you like and subscribe. Trying to get that push to 40k. We're not that far off now, so smash that subscribe button. Why not? Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.